Hello and welcome to US Tzu Chi 360. I'm Dilbar Shatterson, and I'd like you to take a second to picture your home, your bed, your favorite blanket, your couch, your front door. And now imagine that these things are gone. And in their place is smoke and ash lined along what used to be your street. This is a reality for victims of fire, and it especially rings true for those who lived in Southern California during a series of wildfires that occurred there in the fall of 2003. In fact, among them, the Cedar Fire was recorded as the largest in California's history. According to the 2003 San Diego County Fire Siege Fire Safety Review, over 2,200 homes were destroyed in the Cedar Fire alone. That may sound like a daunting number, but what about the other blazes that spread across the state? Altogether, the San Diego Fire Education Project declared that the burning of 750,000 plus acres was the result of 5,953 individual fires. If that's a tough image to wrap around your head, through today's stories, you'll find that you're not quite alone. And while the people you'll meet today have lost quite a lot, they still keep the memories of their own infernos fresh in their minds. Have a look.
San Diego County is a fire environment, number one. Its ecosystem depends on fire. You'll hear people, if they're new to San Diego, well, what if a fire happens? And I always tell them, it's not if, it's when. My name is Marco Strander. I'm a retired CAL FIRE Battalion Chief. I worked 37 years in wildland firefighting. From about 99-2000, I noticed a change. Our fires started getting bigger. They were moving more rapidly, the spread. It was taking more resources to put them out. The weather itself had changed.
So I'm the faculty member at San Diego State University. I've been living in San Diego for the last 14 years. In general, I will conclude there's three major factors or ingredients to create a large-size wildfire. The first one is the climate change. So in United States, in California, we have one of the biggest dry season, the drought situation. The second ingredient is a human settlement. So we are actually building the house in an area which never been built before. And also with the Santa Ana wind. So that Santa Ana wind is the wind from the mountain toward the ocean. Usually that type of wind is very hot, dry, and very fast. In 2003, that's the first time in the last over decades, San Diego haven't had this series of wildfire. And with the wildfire major is starting from the mountain area and with the Santa Ana wind is go to the inlands and to the coastal area, and it cause a lot of damage and evacuations.
I saw fire behavior I never saw in my entire career. I saw fire doing things that I couldn't explain it. I couldn't explain why it was burning that way. You've heard on the movies when freight trains are coming and they make them really loud, that sound. I'm sure people have heard that, and you hear the freight train coming in, and it's just extremely loud, horn blowing. That's not even close to how loud one of those fires are when they're coming up through. Fire does not discriminate against anyone. It doesn't care who you are, what you are, how much money you have, if you're poor, if you're whatever. It just gets everybody.
Here's 82 to 83. This is when my son was born. And you can see we managed to get these out of the fire. We look pretty 80-ish.
I'm David Castle. I've lived here for 58 years, and in 2003 we had an event that changed my life dramatically. We lost our house to a fire. In fact, we were one of about 2,000 houses in San Diego County that were lost at that time. We had been camping, and we were out in the mountains when we got a call. The first thing we heard was, "Oh, this is bad. I'm here with your sister." And the first thing my wife said is, "Where's my kids?" And my sister took the phone and said, "Your kids are fine, your kids are fine, but your house may be gone. You may have lost your house."
I had just a few months before, moved into a new house with my daughter. It was a really difficult year for me. I was going through a divorce, and my daughter was young, and it was difficult. And we had been living at my sister's in a cab over camper, like a little camper. And we had finally found a place of our own and made it ours, you know. And then the fire happened.
I vaguely remember like hearing some stuff on the TV about a fire, and then my mom coming in and telling us that it was time to go. And we didn't even have time to really pack. And I just remember like the sky was, it was like nighttime during the day, and it felt like it was raining because of all the ash.
We were coming up the road and we saw a news truck leaving the road where we were just at, and we knew right then they wouldn't be taking pictures of houses that were partly burned. And when we got here, it was pretty flat. There was nothing left except maybe, a fireplace, the bathroom, ceramic walls, and you could see where the stove was and the refrigerator was, and everything else was flat. It was very, very eerie.
So we're coming into my old neighborhood. It's called Harvesting Canyon. And I kind of snuck in before we were supposed to be let in to see what was going on. And a lot of the power lines were down. The fire just roared through it because it's like a tunnel almost, you know, the canyon. And then I got to my house right here behind this fencing. And it was gone. It's almost like looking at sort of it's a really weird experience. It hits you in your gut like very strongly. Like even after so many years, I can still kind of feel that. When I'm talking about it, I can still kind of feel that devastating feeling of just, there's nothing. There's like bones of things, you know, like my car. I had a car parked there, and it was like just this skeleton of a car, and the house was completely gone. Just, you know, a couple of things you could recognize in the rubble, but everything was gone, and it just takes your breath away.
A lot of people think wildfire is spreading equally through the brush, but actually, because when the wildfire happens, it creates a lot of current, air current. So a lot of, we call ember, can jump from one location to another one. Sometimes those ember can travel up to 1 or 2 miles from the frontier of the wildfire.
It's just beyond comprehension, really. The size, the sheer size of the fire, and the winds are moving it, and it's going from one neighborhood to another. It's skipping across the freeways, you know. I mean, we had people die in the fire, you know. We had people who didn't get out. So it can come and it can be as fast, and all of a sudden you're engulfed.
The wildfire, along with the Santa Ana wind, the spread speed is up to like 50 miles per hour. So it's even faster than people can run.
I tried to go down the freeway one time, getting ahead of one of the fires. I was doing 65 miles an hour, and I couldn't get in front of it. So when the winds are going 65, that fire is traveling 65.
When you leave your house, you don't know what happened next. When you come back, if you are lucky, your house is still there. If you are unlucky, your house is gone.
When my son came in, he came into our bedroom, which is located just about where it was then, and there was a TV sitting here, and he tossed it on the floor. There was a cable running up through this part here, and he just literally ripped it out of the wall, threw it down, and this is what he carried out. Now, I can barely lift that, and he managed to help, I don't know if my sister did, or just him, carry it all the way out there. But this is what my wife would have missed, she would have lost, and these are the things that she saved. You have her yearbook here, a newspaper from the day my son was born. Here's a pair of baby shoes, probably Kyle's, little things.
So I thought I had lost everything, and come to find out that my son had taken a couple of boxes out when he evacuated, that I didn't know he had. He took a couple boxes out, and he had stored them at his work. And when he brought them to me, it was incredible because it was all my family photos. So, yeah. So those are the, sorry. Those are the important things, you know. The other stuff means nothing. I mean, it's hard because you have to rebuild your, you know, your cups and your plates and all the mundane things, but the, you know, the photographs, those are really, you know, cherished.
And if you ever want to get something out of the house, the best thing to get out is the things you plan on giving your kids, because that's what you'll miss. You won't miss the TV, the golf clubs. You'll get new ones of those if you need to, but you will never be able to replace the things that you wanted to hand down from generation to generation. This is actually part of a jet ski that had burned up in the fire, and anytime you have a fire that gets that hot, it melts all of the aluminum. And this apparently was the engine. Up here was the carburetor, because I can still see part of it right here. And then it came down and melted out, and I think this is part, like maybe the ride plate. But it made a beautiful sculpture, and people think that this is just art, but really it's what the fire did.
A lot of my friends came back and they didn't have shoes. Like, some kids were walking around barefoot because they didn't have any shoes. They didn't have backpacks. They didn't have, like, pencils or pens or anything. They didn't have anything. And I consider myself to be lucky because, you know, I came back to school with shoes on, and the morale was really low. All the kids were doing poorly in school. So they decided to do a bunch of therapy things, one of them being art therapy, and I'm pretty sure that's where the tiles came in, and it left a permanent mark on the school. I know students that still go back and look at that.
This is the mural. The kids, a lot of the kids at the school were affected by the fire, and the school was really great. So each child had an opportunity to do a tile, and it's really, really a neat mural. Out of the ashes came our true colors, October 2003. Quite a number of the kids lost their homes in the fire. And my daughter's tile is way up there. It's a pointy-nosed dog. So, yeah. I think, you know, through that adversity, the community came together and got stronger. So, you know, to show our true colors of strength and connection and community.
As you've heard, California has historically had it rough when it comes to combating flames. In fact, in 1932, the Matiliha fire in the Southern Californian town of Ojai burned nearly 220,000 acres of land, according to the San Diego Union. And there have even been significant flames that occurred more recently, like in 2007 and in 2009, that have devastated the same areas. So what are people to do when they've lost everything and may be bound to lose it all again? Well, volunteers at the Tzu Chi Foundation considered one way to provide a remedy. Armed with $600,000 in funds, they reached out to families that had lost their homes in the blaze and distributed $400 checks to each family that qualified. While for some, this was little in comparison to what they had lost, for others, this small token was enough to re-energize and to rekindle a few sparks from within. So let's go back to Amber and David and to see how this little seed of compassion helps steer them along new paths.
All of these places, these fire centers sprung up where people could go and get information. And in these places, there were lines and lines and lines of people, all of them at different places, trying to get different things done and trying to find out what they're supposed to do, what they should do, what's being done, talking to insurance companies. And it was very, very chaotic. No one seemed to really understand what they were supposed to be doing.
It's a totally, it's like wading through concrete, kind of. You have to, there's a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of phone calls you have to make. There's a lot of different things you have to figure out.
And amidst all of this chaos, I look over and there's a table over there and there's two people sitting there, two Asian people. And I walk over to the table and I ask them what they were doing there, and they're saying, we're giving out money to people who lost their houses. And I said, oh, well, what do you have to do to qualify? And they go, you have to have lost your house. And I go, I think we qualify.
You walk in and there are these people that are smiling and they're bowing and welcoming you, and it's such a weird difference from the other, you know, bureaucracy, cold. This is warm and welcoming, and you feel like you're okay.
And they helped us out and gave us some money. It wasn't a huge amount. It wasn't going to rebuild the house, but it was pretty inspirational. So the first thing I thought of was, I need some boots. So I went out and I got a pair of boots. These are the boots. I still have them today. And they help remind me of where I started and how I started. I started with these boots.
EcoVerse is the first pilot project for Tzu Chi to set up the facility in the mainstream society. Some of the people, they just come in for a cup of coffee, and some of the people come to attend our class, or some people become our volunteer to working with us to helping more people in the community. A lady, she working one day, and actually she just make an appointment with her friend in EcoVerse. He didn't realize this place belonged to Tzu Chi Foundation.
I walked in, and you know, it was a really neat space. So at first you look and you go, wow, this is a really neat space. And then in the center of the bookstore is a picture. And I'm like, wait, what's going on? Because it's the same picture that the same woman that I have on my shrine at home. See, there she is. She's on my shrine. So they gave me this beautiful pamphlet, and that was in 2003, and I've had it with me. Actually, it's usually on my bedside table. It just stands up on my bedside table, and it was just inspirational to me. And I might get emotional, I'm sorry. I really believe that when they gifted me at the fire and they prayed over me, that, you know, and that they planted the seed of the Dharma in my heart, and I really believe that. So I really wanted Master Cheng on my shrine. So it's very important to me.
You hear that a lot. Why did you rebuild bigger? Well, you also want to build a house that's going to be friendly to you to live in. And that's what this house is. This is what happened after we rebuilt. What we did was we took it out. Of course, we built on this room here at an angle because we wanted to take advantage of a better view. And this is a bedroom, for example, for my grandson, for this one right here. This is Avery. Say hello in Chinese,
hello.
Please.
Ni hao.
We wanted it not to happen again, so we, of course, used every possible thing we could think of to make it more fire resistant. All the outside wood is not wood. It's this cementatious cellulose that is fireproof. All the timbers are much thicker, much stronger. One of the other things we did was we built sustainably. We tried to reuse a lot of materials and things like that. We used low E glass. The fireplace that we have, it's one of these high EPA rating fireplaces. We can use that, just that, and heat the entire house with it. If you see my wife's license plate, it says the Phoenix. And it's because we rose out of the ashes that my daughter bought that for my wife. And my business, I build gates and do wrought iron work and things like that. My wife runs the Chamber of Commerce. Both of those are directly related to the fire. And we wouldn't have been there if we hadn't. So our lives changed, but they didn't change for the worse, they changed for the better. It struck me that, well, if they can come from Taiwan or, you know, to do this, then why can't I do this for my own community? This is the certificate of recognition awarded by the County Board of Supervisors to the Castle family. And this is for, like here, your heroic action, your service to the community in the face of extreme adversity during the 2003 firestorms. When you have a fire that burns everything, I mean, it takes it all away from you. You realize that, you know, it's just stuff. That's not very important. What's really important are things like your family. You know, my new grandson there. All of the people that mean something to me. What doesn't go away is what you pass on to your family, which is your life and your love.
San Diego County has this emergency site, and it provides a real-time update information about people how to prepare the disaster is very useful for many, many people. Every disaster has their different characteristics and the nature of the impacts. So with the modern technology, we may be able to improving our handle a prediction about wildfire. We have to be respecting the nature and respecting their behavior. And then what we try to do is not to conquer the nature, the hazard disaster, but to adjust our living, to have a harmony, peaceful coexistence between those situations, phenomena in our society.
It's good. It's good. I live in the mountains with my husband. We have a view overlooking San Diego. You can see the ocean, and we have horses.
Pretty girl. Oh, make your silly face.
I work with folks who struggle with drug and alcohol and depression and things like that.
All right, so this is my mom tattoo. I got it like right around the time that she was becoming like who she is now, like a Buddhist, you know, stuff like that. She's just a great person. She's very empathetic. She's understanding. She just helps me through everything. She's like my best friend. I'm gonna cry, okay. She's just great. She's always been there for me through everything.
That's where it started, just that little tiny grassroots, and it's still grassroots, but it's huge. Even if you lose everything, you know, you still have the connection with others, and you can help others, and you can open your heart and, you know, work to make it better for somebody else. I mean, that's what makes it better for me. You know, that's what always makes it better for me, is to make it better for somebody else. So.
While the families we've met today faced incredible difficulty in 2003 and the years that came after, they give the rest of us a glimmer of hope. Through their experience, we see how they've become leaders of resilience in their families, communities, and for our viewers like you. But what motivates them to stay, despite the fact that fires still pose a constant and very serious threat? According to Roger Mark D'Souza, the technical director of the Population Health and Environment Program of the Population Reference Bureau, he says that in the United States, we have a perception that we can adapt to whatever comes our way. And perhaps we do, at least for the interim. But what happens when those moments start to fade into memory? Writer Stephen J. Lyons says that following a natural disaster, communities heroically come together in the short term. So how can we keep the same momentum for the long run, enough to be prepared for what's next? Like Master Janyan says, nothing is impossible when you are determined, just like for Amber and for David. Thanks for joining us this time. I'm Dilba Shatterson, and I'll see you soon.